Two Gentlemen of Verona, Part 1. Now let us take our leave. There lived once in Verona 2 friends who loved each other dearly. Their names were Valentine and Proteus. They were both young and gallant gentlemen, but they were very different in character, as you will presently see. Valentine was simple and honest, a loyal and devoted friend, and too candid and sincere himself to think of treachery in others. Proteus had warm affections, but he was fickle and changeable, carried away by impulse, and always so desperately eager for what he happened to want at the moment that he stopped at no means to gain his ends. Valentine and Proteus were very happy together as companions, but at last the time came when they were to part. Valentine was not content to settle down at Verona. He wanted to see something of the world and its wider life. "Home-keeping youth have ever homely wits," he said to Proteus, who was trying to persuade him to stay. "If it were not that you were chained here by your affections, I would rather beg your company to see the wonders of the world abroad. But since you are in love, love still, and thrive in it, even as I would when I once begin to love." This he said, because Proteus was deeply in love at that moment with a fair lady of Verona called Julia. And then Valentine went on to tease Proteus, pretending that all love was folly, and that only foolish people let themselves be deluded into it. He little knew how soon he was himself to be caught in the same folly, and how basely and treacherously his friend was going to act towards him. However, at that moment Proteus had no thought of anyone but Julia, and would not have left Verona on any account. The 2 friends took an affectionate farewell of each other, and Valentine went his way to travel to the court of Milan. "He hunts after honor, I after love," thought Proteus when his friend had left him. "He leaves his friends to bring more credit to them by improving himself. I leave myself, my friends, and all, for love. Thou, Julia, hast changed me, made me neglect my studies, lose my time, fight against good counsel, set the world at naught, weaken my brains with dreaming, and make my heart sick with thought." While Proteus was indulging in this rhapsody, Speed, the clownish servant of Valentine, came hurrying up. "Sir Proteus, save you!" he cried in the greeting of those days. "Saw you my master?" "He has just this minute gone to embark for Milan," replied Proteus. "Did you give my letter to the Lady Julia?" "Yes, sir, and she gave me nothing for my labor," said Speed, who was out of temper at not having received the handsome fee he was hoping for. "But what did she say?" asked Proteus eagerly. "Oh, she nodded." Come, what did she say?" "Will you open your purse, sir?" "Well, there is something for your trouble. Now, what did she say?" "Truly, sir, I think you will hardly win her," said Speed with a sly look, pocketing the piece of money Proteus threw to him. "Why? Could you perceive so much from her manner?" "Sir, I could perceive nothing at all from her. No, not so much as a ducat for delivering your letter. And as she was so hard to me, who is your messenger, I fear she will prove equally hard to you. Give her no present but a stone, for she is as hard as steel." "What did she say? Nothing?" repeated poor Proteus. "No, not so much as 'take that for your pains,'" said Speed, still harping on his own grievance. "I thank you for your bounty, sir. Henceforth carry your letters yourself, and so I will go seek my master." Go, to save your ship from wreck," cried Proteus, incensed at the fellow's impertinence. "It cannot perish when you are aboard, for you are certainly destined for a drier death on shore. I must find some better messenger to send," he added to himself when the saucy serving man had taken off. "I am afraid my Julia would not deign to accept my lines, receiving them from such a worthless envoy." But, as it happened, the letter had so far not reached the hands of the lady for whom it was intended, for it was only her waiting maid Lucetta whom Speed had seen, and to whom he had given the letter in mistake for Julia. Lucetta went in search of her mistress, and found her in the garden, musing over many things, for by this time Julia really loved Proteus, though she would not acknowledge it even to herself. When Lucetta handed her the letter, saying she thought it had been sent by Proteus, Julia pretended to be angry, and scolded her maid for daring to receive it. "Here, take the paper again," she said, "and see that it is returned, or never again come into my presence." "To plead for love deserves a better reward than to be scolded," muttered Lucetta. From being so much with her young mistress, the maid was treated more as a companion than as a servant, and was accustomed to speak out her mind frankly on every occasion. "Go," said Julia, severely, but no sooner had Lucetta disappeared than she was seized with remorse. "How churlishly I sent her away, when all the time I wanted her here," she thought. "How angrily I tried to frown, when really my heart was smiling with secret joy. To punish myself, I must call Lucetta back, and ask her pardon for my folly. What ho, Lucetta!" "What does your ladyship want?" asked Lucetta, reappearing. But at the sight of her maid, Julia suddenly became shy again. "Is it near dinner time?" she asked, with an air of pretended indifference. "I would it were, madam, so that you might spend your anger on your meat, and not on your maid," replied Lucetta rather flippantly, and at that moment she let the letter fall, and picked it up ostentatiously. "What is it you took up so gingerly?" inquired Julia. "Nothing." "Why did you stoop, then?" "To pick up a paper I let fall." "And is that paper nothing?" "Nothing that concerns me." "Then let it lie there for whom it does concern." But Lucetta had no intention that the letter should lie unheeded on the ground, for her only purpose in dropping it was to bring it again to Julia's notice. She little knew how her mistress longed at that moment to have it in her own possession, but was too proud to acknowledge it. Lucetta could not refrain from some pert speeches, and her jesting words irritated Julia, especially when Lucetta declared she was taking the part of Proteus. "I will have no more chatter about this," said Julia, and she tore the letter and threw the pieces on the ground. "Go, get you gone, and let the papers lie." "She pretends not to like it, but she would be very well pleased to be so angered with another letter," said the shrewd maid, half aloud, as she walked away. "Nay, would I were so angered with the same!" cried Julia, eagerly seizing some of the fragments. "Oh, hateful hands, to tear such loving words! I'll kiss each little piece of paper to make amends. Look, here is written, 'Kind Julia, unkind Julia.' Be calm, good wind, do not blow any of the words away until I have found every letter." And with a loving touch she began carefully to collect the torn scraps of paper. "Madame," said Lucetta, coming back, "dinner is ready, and your father waits." "Well, let us go," said Julia. "Are these papers to lie here like tell-tales, madam? If you care about them, you had better pick them up." "They shall not stay here, for fear of catching cold," said Lucetta, with a mischievous little smile to herself. "I see you are very anxious to have them," said Julia. "Ah, madam, you may say what sights you see," said the maid, quite unabashed. "I see things too, though you judge my eyes are shut. Come, come, let us go," said Julia. Proteus had refused to accompany his friend Valentine, but he soon found that he was not to be allowed to remain at Verona. In those days it was considered that no young man was well brought up unless he had had the advantage of foreign travel, and an uncle of his spoke very strongly on the subject. "I wonder that his father lets him spend his youth at home," he said, "while other men of much less repute send out their sons to seek preferment, some to the wars, to try their fortune there, some to discover islands far away, some to study at the universities. For any or for all of these, Proteus is fit. It will be a great disadvantage to him in after years to have known no travel in his youth." To this, Proteus's father, Antonio, answered that he had already been thinking over the matter. "I have reflected how he is wasting his time, and how he can never be a perfect man unless he goes out in the world to learn by experience," he said. And he came to the conclusion that he could do no better than send Proteus after Valentine to the court of the Duke of Milan. Proteus was ordered to hold himself in readiness to start the next day, and all appeals were useless. The only consolation he had in leaving Julia was that the lady now frankly admitted his love. "Keep this remembrance for thy Julia's sake," she said, giving him a ring when the moment came to part. "Why, then, we'll make an exchange," said Proteus. "Here, take you this, and here is my hand for my true constancy. If ever I do not remember you for a single hour, Julia, the next hour let some evil mischance torment me for my forgetfulness." And so, with many protestations of love and fidelity, Proteus started to rejoin his friend Valentine at Milan, and Julia was left behind at Verona.